Did you know Berserk doesn't have a chapter 83? Yeah, this is a Berserk chapter deleted by Miura himself. While it did initially appear in the magazine release, when the following volume came out, it was nowhere to be seen. In this chapter, we watch Griffith speak with God, yes, literal God, who reveals tons of secrets when it comes to Berserk, and somehow manages to make Griffith look even more evil. Yeah, what a crazy chapter to delete. Though the reason appears to be that this chapter ultimately gave away too much. Miura also clearly dislikes the idea of having a clear God in Berserk, saying, "The appearance of God in the manga conclusively determines its range." A statement that makes a lot of sense. Berserk is nowhere near a story about fighting God itself. It's a story about guts. The deleted chapter takes place in the eclipse after Griffith chants sacrifice. But we can't skip right to it, as the moment actually begins in the chapter before it. In chapter 82, Griffith is being healed and transformed into Femto, where we get a look into his mind. Griffith views himself sinking deep into a dark sea. No idea where he is and unable to see his own body. I've personally always attributed this scene, how he's in this mental scape, to his mind being upgraded, so to say. If accepting demonhood brought his physical self to a higher level, this is where his mind rises to that higher level as well, learning the truth of the world. In the darkness of his mind, he watches the Band of the Hawk become sacrifices. Their deaths pierce through him. He feels their life force as he uses it as fuel to become Femto. He states he wished for it and doesn't feel anything. Griffith looks at his allies like tools. They knew the consequences of their allegiance, that they'd be steps to climb. Of course, in the inner depths of his mind, he feels nothing. He views a ripple in the water, yet the droplets that arise are baylets, telling us, the reader, that these rocks are truly otherworldly in nature. It's then Griffith finds himself before something unexplainable. Him questioning if it's God. And this is where the existing before chapter ends, chapter 82. Griffith meets God because he too is becoming a sort of god. It's the ultimate Griffith isn't becoming just another demon, but something even higher moment. Leaving things here and deleting what follows makes sense to me, as it proves Griffith's worth while not overselling God's presence. What Miura made clear was not the focus of Berserk. Remember, Berserk is Guts' quest for revenge, not his quest to kill God Almighty. If you were to buy a volume today, right here it would cut back to Guts, continuing to chapter 84 like nothing happened. But in the deleted chapter, this scene continues. Chapter 83 begins with the name of this desired god, the idea of evil. Griffith questions if he's before God as he begins to be reconstructed. The idea of evil welcoming him before confirming that it is a god, at least what the people's idea of God is. The idea of evil then tells him to look around. This is its core. Griffith standing in a huge never-ending cyclone, him and the fleshy god at the epicenter of it all. The god explains this world as an ocean of feelings all humans have deep in their souls. It's the collective consciousness of the dark side. The god states that it was born from these dark thoughts as the ego of the world. This world Griffith has found himself in is the darkness that dwells in every single human heart. The idea of evil is a manifestation of that darkness. That is God. There's something so wrong yet so right here. The idea of evil, humanity's God, takes the form of a human heart. While Griffith describes it as a lump of flesh, the implication and resemblance is certain. And with the idea of evil describing itself as a culmination of negative thought, well, this is actually perfect. While thoughts do come from your brain scientifically, spiritually, the heart is the most important part of oneself. Your thoughts, love, and emotions form here. And in Berserk, the spiritual object that is all important is God. I think that idea in itself is so perfect, yet utterly terrifying. With this, Griffith realizes, does that mean it was humanity itself that created God? It was us humans that desired this terrifying, indescribable, fleshy mass? Hell? The being responds that some would call it that. Yet this is just the surface of human consciousness, a place that is terribly human. Violence and loneliness. It's a place filled with blurred negative feeling. It is the will that defines human nature. Griffith acknowledges it. Yes, it's true. He can now feel this inside of him. Yet knowing that it's the truth, he can only ask why. Why was it born? Why would humans give birth to this will called God? And the answer is astonishingly simple. We desired reasons. We wanted reasons for our pain, sadness, life, death, why we suffer, why there's absurd ideas like death. We needed an explanation for this destiny that transcended our knowledge. That idea, that quest for answers, became God. This being came into creation to produce those reasons, and therefore it makes sense when it declares that it too controls fate. The idea of evil obeys the essence of mankind and weaves destiny accordingly. Griffith is stunned to hear this. That would mean this thing controlled his destiny. It arranged for everything to be this way? The idea of evil speaks. It was long established Griffith would come. The god manipulated history to pave the time Griffith would be born. It influenced consciousness, merged blood with blood, created Griffith's lineage to make his birth possible, and gave context to his birth. Finally, the god declares that all of Griffith's encounters were part of the destiny that led him here, the person front and center being Guts. It's like upon hearing these words, we're meant to think of him. The implication given is clear. It's implied Guts only exists for Griffith. According to this god, Guts was always meant to lead the Hawk, win the battle, come back, and break Griffith out to bring him here. Guts' existence is a tool God used for Griffith, which is terrifying. Ambushed by the truth, Griffith can only ask, if God made everything so for this moment, then what does he want from him? The idea of evil responding, be as you will. It dwells deep in Griffith's heart. It is a part of him. Griffith is part of humankind's consciousness. His desire is God's desire. Griffith's actions shall prove suitable for his kind as a whole. They are his. May they bring pain or salvation. Do as you will, chosen one. The idea of evil explains that Griffith is now a god, and if the idea of evil, a god, is the embodiment of humanity's consciousness, then Griffith is now too part of this embodiment. He too can now sway and create destinies for man. Simply put, Griffith was certain to be created and to be God before he was even thought of. And now that God has made it happen, Griffith is free to do as he pleases. He now has the highest power possible, to influence destiny. And so, the god tells him, do as you will with it. I think this is a very cool moment that tells you what kind of god this is. If this is a god that is meant to give desires and respond to humanity's wishes, create reasons, it itself being an embodiment of humanity's consciousness and negative thought, then it is very honest for it to create God Hand. Let me explain. The assumption is that all the God Hand were brought to this point in the same way Griffith was. They were humans thought of and chosen to be created by God. I'd like to assume that if this God wants to guide and give reasons to humanity, it chooses humans, the God Hand, to help him with that, because they too were human before. It almost showcases an understanding that it might not know everything that is human. And the fact that it seeks humans to show him that, shows that it might actually be willing to do good. I mean, there's no reason we shouldn't doubt it's trying to do that, but I just thought that that is very interesting. But with this revelation, Griffith now knowing that he is an object of destiny, one who now has free will to influence destiny and do whatever he wants, he responds, if so, I want wings. His body is fully recovered as he drops into the sea. The idea of evil telling him to take in the power of feeling the world is filled with and turn it to his own. Make his body into a shape suitable for his task. The last panel showcasing a dark, winged figure ascending from the vortex. With an encounter with God, Griffith has been reborn as Femto and is now waking up. The end of this chapter is almost laughable. Not in writing, but how disgustingly well it portrays Griffith. This chapter all takes place as Griffith is being mended from a broken man and being upgraded to a god. Not only physically, but mentally, as he's literally meeting God and learning the truth of the world. Griffith is told his existence was perfectly crafted for this moment. The moment where he is given everything. And what does he do? He asks for more. He asks for wings. Griffith seems dissatisfied somehow, yearning for more. But what reads even worse is the thing that he asks for. Wings. Of course, wings represent angels and the idea of soaring to new heights. Applying it to Griffith, he's told he's on the level of God, but he states he wants to go higher. Yet wings also represent how he views himself. Wings are often radiant, a symbol of light and hope, and an identifying part of an angel. This to say, Griffith really does consider himself a radiant, all-good hero, which is what makes his actions after this so disgusting. We all know what Griffith goes on to do to Casca, meaning Griffith thought of himself as an angelic being during this. In his eyes, his actions are all absolute and radiant. Yeah, it's pretty disgusting. It's laughable that you could show this chapter to a person who has never read Berserk and they'd get the same idea. A man approached by God, given all the power he could hope for, and yet he still inquires about more. It defines Griffith as ambitious yet childish in a single phrase. Two pretty big essential parts of his character. His dream is so grand it's childish, yet his ambition for said dream is very real. The phrase "I want wings" defines him so well. An evil being asking for light, an outcome of destiny who sees no wrong in his motivations, and a person who views himself above all, even God. It's a phrase that makes Griffith disgustingly despicable with as little words as possible. But this chapter doesn't only make Griffith even more evil, as you gotta remember, its original purpose was to make the idea of God even more prevalent in Berserk. Yet ultimately, after it came out, Miura decided it just wasn't right to really make God a huge thing in Berserk. It would then go on to be deleted completely. It's not in any volumes that have ever been released of Berserk. And if that's the case, what can we even make of this chapter? The idea of evil is the collective human consciousness, a being birthed to be a reason for negativity. And since this is the case, I think it's best Miura didn't make it a huge aspect of Berserk. As in its name, the idea of evil, it's an idea, the consciousness of others. How would you expect Guts to even fight that? And say he was to beat it? Well, wouldn't it still exist? This being came to life because of humanity's negativity. And that will truly never end. As long as there's a human, there'll be a human that's upset in some way. You could argue he never has to fight it, but making a god that is the idea of controlling destiny into a huge part of the story, one swarmed in ideas of fate where Guts is already going after a god, implies he would without a doubt end up fighting it. This isn't to say the idea of evil shouldn't exist at all though. After all, the goal was to never remove it, rather make it less apparent. It does still exist in Berserk, though it's revealed a bit more subtly. I think this is a choice that is very well paid off, as there's moments like in volume 24 where the idea of heaven and hell is discussed, or the idea of an ethereal body in a distant world. It makes these moments all the more mystical and uncomfortable. Personally, if I knew the truth, it would have ruined this a lot on my first read. I also love when Skull Knight meets Guts in the Conviction arc and we're told what the God Hand are. A group of negative thought. They cannot appear anywhere because they're thought, yet they're everywhere because humanity is negativity. In essence, this is what the idea of evil revealed to us. But having it presented through Skull Knight feels correct. It wraps up in the story why they can have a force on the world while being otherworldly, but it's just told a lot more subtly. I also like how it unintentionally explains Guts' Beast to Darkness. It's a concentration of Guts' negative thoughts, but because it's just a thought, it's not real. Finally, we're told Griffith is a being of fate desired by the people here, and I think being straight up told that makes later arcs like Conviction or Falcon of the Millennium Empire less cool. A big part of those arcs is how quick and how easily the people accept Griffith as a ruler, as like a god. And if we're told that he's basically destined to be this, well, it would have been a lot less crazy. All to say, these cool moments and realizations are pretty much spoiled if Miura had kept that chapter. I think he did, and I very much prefer slowly unveiling the truth of the world. I truly do believe it's the most satisfying option for a story like Berserk. But that was chapter 83, Berserk's deleted chapter. What do you think? Do you think Miura should have kept this chapter and continued making God a bigger idea in Berserk? Were the revelations given really that crazy, so much so that they needed to be axed? Finally, I'd ask you if this chapter makes Griffith evil, but we all know Griffith is evil. I don't even need to say that. Ultimately though, take this all with a grain of salt. If you bought a volume today, when the chapter came out, you would never have found this chapter. Miura himself decided that it was too much, and that's just how it goes. You can't really do anything about it. There's nothing to do besides think of what ifs and take a look at what could have been and what once was. But that's it, that's all I'm going to talk about for this video. Bit of a shorter one this week, but I promise you it's so that the next week's big Conviction arc video that is like over 2 hours long is even better. I've been doing videos talking about every arc in Berserk, starting with the Black Swordsman, Golden Age, those are in one video, and I've done the Lost Children. Next up will be Conviction. It might even be out if you're watching this video way later. But yeah, thank you so much for watching. I'll get you out of here. See you next time.